The sun blazed over Millbrook, Colorado, in the summer of 1882, casting a golden glow on the dusty streets of a frontier town worn by time and toil. This was no ordinary day for the small settlement, where life was often a battle against the elements and the unpredictability of the wild. Today, joy was in the air, a wedding was about to unfold, a rare moment of unity and hope for a community that had weathered its share of storms. At the edge of a weathered wooden boardwalk, Rebecca Hartwell stood, her heart racing beneath her simple blue dress, the cotton clinging to her skin in the dry heat. At 28, she had long made peace with the idea that love and marriage were dreams meant for others. 3 years ago, a smallpox outbreak had swept through Millbrook, leaving scars on both the town and its people. For Rebecca, those scars were more than a memory, they were etched across the left side of her face, faint silver lines that had once burned red with pain. They were a constant reminder of the fevered weeks when death had hovered over half the town, claiming some and sparing others, including her. She had survived, but the mirror had become her enemy, reflecting a stranger she barely recognized. Today, though, was not about the past. It was about a promise, a practical one, as most frontier unions were. Rebecca's father had passed last winter, leaving her to tend their modest farm alone, a task that weighed heavy on her shoulders. Samuel Morgan, a 35-year-old widower with hands roughened by years of labor and eyes that held a quiet kindness, needed a partner to help raise his 2 young children after his wife's death in childbirth. Samuel was a man Millbrook respected, his weathered face and ever-present brown hat as familiar as the church steeple piercing the skyline. He was steady, fair, and known for helping neighbors without a second thought. Their courtship had been brief, practical, and polite. Samuel had visited her farm twice, discussing crops and chores while his children laughed and chased each other through her garden. He never flinched when he looked at her, his gaze steady even when it met the scars she tried to hide. But Rebecca couldn't shake the fear that his kindness was just that, kindness, not love. Could a man like Samuel truly want her, or was this merely duty dressed up as affection? Now, as she stood on the cusp of becoming his wife, the weight of the moment pressed against her chest. The town square buzzed with anticipation, neighbors gathered to witness the union, their faces a mix of curiosity and goodwill. Rebecca's dearest friend, Martha, had spent the morning fussing over her, draping her in a white veil passed down through generations of frontier women who'd found love in this rugged land. "You're radiant, Rebecca," Martha had said, her voice warm as she adjusted the delicate fabric. "Samuel's lucky to have you." But as Rebecca stepped toward the makeshift altar, a creaking wooden platform under the unrelenting sun, doubt slithered into her mind like a shadow. What if Samuel saw her in the harsh daylight and regretted his choice? What if the scars she carried, the ones she'd hidden from the world, made him hesitate? Samuel stood waiting, tall and steady, his best shirt pressed crisp, his boots gleaming with fresh polish. Pastor Williams, his Bible worn from years of service, began the ceremony, his voice ringing out over the crowd. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to join Samuel Morgan and Rebecca Hartwell in holy matrimony." Rebecca clutched a small bouquet of wildflowers Martha had picked at dawn, her hands trembling as she kept her eyes fixed on the ground. The weight of every stare felt like a physical burden, as if the town could see straight through her veil to the scars beneath. She knew these people, some had known her as the bright-eyed girl she'd been before the smallpox, others only as the quiet woman who shied away from sunlight, her face angled to hide her flaws. As the pastor's words rolled on, her pulse quickened. When he reached the part about speaking now or forever holding peace, the silence stretched like a taut wire, broken only by the faint clatter of horses in the distance and the whisper of wind through the wooden buildings. Then came the moment she dreaded most. "Samuel, you may now lift your bride's veil and seal your union with a kiss." Rebecca's breath caught, sharp and painful. She'd shown Samuel her face before, but always in the forgiving light of dawn or dusk. Now, with the sun high and the town watching, there was no hiding. Her hands moved instinctively, tugging the veil closer, desperate to shield herself from their eyes. "I can't," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, meant only for Samuel. Please, I can't let them see. He stood still, his brown eyes studying her with a steadiness that had always made her feel safe. Slowly, he removed his hat, setting it aside with deliberate care. His hands, calloused from years of toil, reached for the edge of her veil, moving with a gentleness that felt almost sacred. "Rebecca," he said, his voice slow but clear, carrying to the front rows. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes, bracing for pity or hesitation. Instead, she found warmth, a quiet intensity that caught her off guard. There was no trace of judgment in his gaze, only something that looked like awe. "May I?" he asked, his fingers hovering at the veil's edge. Every instinct screamed for her to say no, to flee to the safety of her farm and lock the door against the world. But something in Samuel's eyes, something steady and true, gave her a flicker of courage. She nodded, a small, trembling motion. With reverence, Samuel lifted the veil, letting it fall away to reveal her face in the stark afternoon light. Rebecca closed her eyes, holding her breath as the crowd murmured softly, some in surprise, others in quiet approval. But it was Samuel's voice that brought her back. "Rebecca Hartwell," he said, her name like a vow, "you are beautiful." The words weren't for the crowd. They came from a place deep and honest, carrying a conviction that made tears prick at her eyes. "The scars," she whispered, her voice fragile. Samuel's hand rose, his thumb tracing one of the silver lines with a tenderness that stole her breath. "The scars tell a story," he said. "Of survival, of strength. They're part of you, and you are beautiful." He paused, his eyes locked on hers. "I've watched you these past years, Rebecca, how you tend your garden, how you care for others, how you speak to my children with such gentleness. That's the beauty that shines from you. These marks, they don't dim it, they're just part of your story." The crowd fell silent, sensing the weight of the moment. Older women dabbed their eyes, remembering their own moments of vulnerability, their own weddings marked by fear and hope. "Samuel," Rebecca whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I mean every word," he said, his tone unwavering. "You're beautiful to me, inside and out. It's an honor to stand here with you." Pastor Williams, his own eyes misty, continued with a warmth that filled the square. "By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Samuel, you may kiss your bride." Samuel leaned in slowly, giving her the chance to pull away. But Rebecca lifted her face, meeting him halfway, their kiss a quiet promise of trust and partnership. The crowd erupted in cheers, but to Rebecca, it was a distant hum. For the first time in 3 years, she felt seen, not for her scars, but for her heart. The celebration stretched into the night, filled with music, laughter, and the kind of joy that frontier towns clung to like treasure. Rebecca laughed freely, her new husband by her side, introducing her proudly to visitors from neighboring settlements. As years passed, the story of Samuel and Rebecca Morgan became a legend in Millbrook, not for the scars that had once defined her, but for the love that bloomed between them, resilient as wildflowers in spring. Their marriage stood as proof that true beauty lies not in flawless skin but in the courage to embrace each other's imperfections. This tale of love and acceptance is brought to you by Midnight Tales, your home for stories that warm the heart and lift the spirit. If Rebecca and Samuel's story moved you, reminding you that love sees beyond the surface, please like this video, share it with someone who needs its message, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more stories that celebrate the best of humanity. Drop a comment below, tell us about a time someone helped you see your own beauty or when you offered that gift to another. At Midnight Tales, we believe everyone has the power to look through kinder, more loving eyes. Join us for more stories that remind us what it means to truly see one another.